Or, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something real, something that happens in silence, in messages left unread, and in the moments after you stop reaching out. Or when you stop contacting a woman, the first thing she feels is confusion. Her mind begins to replay every conversation, every message, or every small detail that might explain your silence. The absence of communication becomes a loud echo in her thoughts. Or she wonders whether she said something wrong or if your feelings simply faded. This period is often filled with uncertainty, self-doubt, and emotional turbulence. Yet, or this confusion is the seed of clarity. In her search for answers, she begins the journey towards self-awareness. As time passes, or she realizes that reaching out to someone who doesn't reciprocate only drains her emotionally, or she starts to question why she placed her peace in the hands of someone else's attention. That realization doesn't come overnight, it unfolds slowly, or as she learns to sit with her emotions instead of escaping them. In her silence, she finds strength. What was once confusion begins to turn into understanding through her pain, or she starts to discover that her worth was never tied to someone's response. When the messages stop coming, she begins to see herself from a new perspective, or the constant need for validation starts to fade, replaced by curiosity about who she really is. She begins to spend time alone, thinking, writing, or maybe crying, but also healing. Each day, she becomes more aware of her independence and her emotional resilience, or she realizes she doesn't need constant reassurance to feel loved. In this stillness, she learns that her value exists even when no one else affirms it. With distance, or she begins to recall how much of herself she gave away just to feel secure. She remembers the times she ignored her needs to keep the connection alive. Or that reflection stirs something powerful inside her, the desire to reclaim her own energy. The silence that once hurt her now becomes sacred. Or she learns that attention is not affection and presence is not love if it lacks respect. By understanding this difference, or she begins to rebuild her sense of self-worth from within. Each day without contact teaches her something new about independence. Or she starts focusing on the things that make her genuinely happy, her work, her hobbies, her friends, and her dreams. The more she invests in herself, or the less she feels the need for outside validation. Her happiness stops revolving around anyone's presence. Instead, or it begins to bloom from her own growth and self-appreciation. She realizes that self-love is the most reliable form of love she can ever experience. She begins to feel lighter, or the same silence that once felt unbearable now feels peaceful. Her energy shifts from chasing closure to embracing acceptance. Or she understands that not every ending needs an explanation, some just need acknowledgement. This maturity allows her to let go gracefully without resentment, or the power she once gave away through her emotions now returns to her heart. Her conclusion is clear: peace is worth more than attention that comes without intention. With time, or she notices how much she has evolved. Her confidence grows, not because someone told her she's worthy, but because she's proven it to herself. Every small act of self-care, or every decision made for her own well-being, adds another layer of strength. The silence that once symbolized rejection now represents transformation. Or she no longer fears being alone because solitude has become her sanctuary. She concludes that being alone is not emptiness, it's freedom in disguise. Or when others see her again, they notice the difference. There's a calmness in her presence, a quiet confidence that wasn't there before. She speaks less but with more purpose. Or she no longer feels the need to prove her worth to anyone. That's the beauty of her journey. She has turned pain into power. Or she understands that self-respect means walking away when communication fades without losing dignity. Her conclusion now is firm, or she has outgrown the need for those who don't value her presence. In the end, the woman who once waited by her phone no longer does. Or she's found herself in the silence you left behind. The confusion became clarity, the heartbreak became healing, and the loneliness became liberation. Or she now knows that her worth isn't dependent on who stays or who leaves. It was always within her. She just needed the silence to hear it. Her final conclusion is profound, or losing someone's attention helped her find her own identity, and that's a victory no silence can ever take away. When you stop contacting a woman, or something inside her begins to shift, the silence that once confused her slowly becomes a challenge she decides to rise above. Or instead of waiting for your message or wondering what she did wrong, she begins to refocus her thoughts. Or she starts seeing the pause not as rejection, but as an opportunity to rebuild herself. What was once emotional chaos turns into motivation. Or she realizes she can either keep mourning the silence or use it to rediscover her direction. She starts by taking small steps, the things she once neglected. Her hobbies or her routines, her health slowly come back into focus. Each day she replaces thoughts of why with actions of how. How can she improve herself? Or how can she make her life fuller without needing validation? The effort she once gave to chasing communication is now spent on creating balance. Or through discipline and consistency, she rebuilds her foundation. The woman who once overthought every silence now uses it as fuel for her ambition. Or she dives into her work or studies, not as an escape, but as a form of empowerment. Productivity becomes her therapy. She begins to see progress in her goals and accomplishments. Or every small success reminds her that she's capable on her own. Instead of waiting for affection, she channels her energy into self-improvement. The more she grows, or the more distant her pain feels. As she rebuilds her focus, she becomes more mindful of the people she allows in her space. She notices how peace feels, and she refuses to let anyone disturb it again. The same energy she once gave freely, she now protects carefully. Her time becomes valuable, her boundaries firm. Or the absence of constant communication teaches her to communicate better with herself. She understands that silence can protect her from drama and disappointment. Over time, her energy begins to radiate differently. She wakes up with purpose instead of longing. Her days are filled with goals, not doubts. Or the reflection she sees in the mirror looks stronger, calmer, and more confident. She realizes that she was never weak. She was simply distracted. Or now that her attention is her own again, her life moves forward naturally. She no longer chases connection, she attracts it through her renewed self-worth. Or her social world changes too. She spends more time with people who uplift her and less with those who drain her. Genuine connections begin to replace shallow ones. Or she learns that quality matters more than quantity, and not everyone deserves access to her energy. Through these choices, she builds a circle that reflects her growth, or her peace becomes contagious. The more she rebuilds her focus, the less she feels the urge to look back. The memories that once held her fade behind her progress, or she stops revisiting old conversations or imagining different endings. Her mind no longer lives in the past because the future excites her more. Or the strength she gains from focusing on her goals outweighs the pain of any lost connection. She realizes that letting go isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Or her emotional balance improves with time. She learns that calmness isn't something that appears, it's something she practices. Meditation, journaling, reading, or simply breathing deeply all become her new forms of healing. These habits help her rebuild emotional stability and inner strength, or she becomes someone who responds instead of reacts. Her control over her emotions empowers her more than any external validation ever could. Eventually, she looks back on the moment you stopped contacting her and feels gratitude, not anger. The silence that once broke her became the lesson that built her. Or she no longer blames anyone for leaving because she understands that every ending carries a new beginning. The focus she rebuilt has turned into resilience. And her independence shines brighter than ever. She stands tall, proud, and fulfilled, not because she was saved, but because she saved herself. Or when you stop contacting a woman, something unexpected begins to happen. She starts to glow differently. At first, that glow is subtle, born from silence and reflection. Or as she begins to accept the distance, her focus shifts inward. The energy she once used to understand someone else is now redirected toward understanding herself. Slowly, she finds beauty in her solitude, her mind clears, her emotions balance, and her confidence begins to return. This glow is not about appearance alone, it's a transformation from within. She begins to care for herself in ways she once neglected. The tears that used to fall now water the seeds of her renewal. or she starts to exercise, eat better, dress differently, and treat herself with the tenderness she once reserved for others. Her self-care routine becomes her silent revolution. Or the mirror that once reflected heartbreak now shows a woman in progress, not in pieces. Each day brings a small improvement, a step toward wholeness. Or the glow others see is not just physical, it's spiritual and emotional. Her energy feels lighter, her smile more genuine. She doesn't seek attention, or yet she begins to attract it effortlessly. People notice the calmness in her voice, the confidence in her walk, and the peace in her eyes. Or it's the kind of transformation that can't be faked. It comes from inner healing. What once hurt her deeply now fuels her strength as she continues to grow, or she becomes more selective about her surroundings. She starts distancing herself from negativity and drama. Her peace becomes her top priority, and she guards it fiercely. Or the silence that once frightened her now feels sacred, a place where she recharges and reconnects with her true self. Or she learns that protecting her energy is the key to maintaining her glow. Her confidence starts to inspire others. Or friends and even strangers notice the shift. She carries herself with grace and certainty. She no longer needs to prove her worth because it's evident in the way she lives. Or the woman who once questioned her value now embodies self-respect. Her words hold power because they come from experience, not insecurity. Or every challenge she faced has shaped her into someone unbreakable. She begins to enjoy her independence more than she ever imagined. Going out alone, achieving personal goals, or simply spending time in quiet joy becomes empowering. She realizes that happiness isn't found in someone's presence, but in her own contentment. Or this freedom gives her a new kind of glow, one that doesn't fade when others leave. Her laughter becomes more genuine, her spirit more alive. Every day, or she feels herself evolving. Her past no longer defines her, it strengthens her. The woman who once relied on constant reassurance now trusts herself completely. Or she knows that peace doesn't come from being wanted, it comes from being whole. Her glow is the result of lessons learned, boundaries set, and self-love practiced daily. Or her transformation is quiet yet undeniable. The world begins to respond to her differently. Opportunities start coming her way, not because of luck but because of the energy she emits. People respect her more, admire her resilience, and are drawn to her aura. She no longer chases anything or anyone instead, or she attracts everything aligned with her growth. Her confidence is magnetic because it's rooted in authenticity. She has become a woman of depth, grace, and purpose. Or in the end, her glow becomes her story, a silent testimony of pain turned into power. Or the woman she is now would hardly recognize the one who once waited for a text that never came. Through silence, she found strength. Through loss, she found love for herself. Or her transformation was never about revenge or proving anything. It was about reclaiming her joy and living on her own terms. When you stop contacting a woman, or she goes through a quiet transformation that begins with acceptance. At first, she may feel the sting of absence, the emptiness left behind by broken communication, but slowly, or her heart learns to breathe again. She starts to see that holding on to what has already drifted away only prolongs the pain. Instead of chasing what's gone, or she begins to choose peace over persistence. She lets go not because she stopped caring, but because she finally understands that healing begins with release. Or as the silence continues, she discovers a newfound strength in solitude. She realizes that being alone does not mean being lonely. She starts to enjoy her own company, or filling her days with things that bring her joy and meaning. The same moments that once felt empty now feel liberating. She no longer waits for messages that may never come. She writes her own instead, messages of gratitude, growth, and renewal. Her perspective begins to evolve. She no longer sees herself as someone abandoned, but as someone freed from emotional dependency. The pain that once felt unbearable becomes a teacher. It teaches her how to stand on her own, how to love without losing herself, and how to walk away with dignity. This realization doesn't come easily. It's earned through reflection and resilience. Every tear transforms into wisdom, or every silence becomes strength. She begins to forgive, not for others, but for herself. She forgives the moments of weakness, or the times she stayed when she should have walked away, and the words she never said. Forgiveness becomes her way of freeing her spirit from resentment, or it softens her heart without making it vulnerable. She learns that letting go of anger does not mean excusing what happened, but refusing to let it control her anymore. Or through forgiveness, she regains emotional balance. Her focus now shifts entirely toward growth. Instead of replaying what went wrong, or she begins to invest in what can go right. Her goals, her passions, her personal evolution. Each day without communication strengthens her independence. She learns new skills or meets new people and builds new experiences that shape her into a wiser woman. The pain that once consumed her becomes the drive that fuels her purpose. Over time, or she begins to notice her emotional resilience. Situations that once would have broken her now barely shake her. Or she understands that strength isn't about being unaffected. It's about being unshaken despite the pain. She carries her past with grace, not bitterness. Or her scars don't define her, they remind her of the strength it took to heal. Every quiet moment teaches her that growth requires both patience and courage. Or, as she grows stronger, her boundaries become firmer. She no longer entertains half-hearted efforts or inconsistent affection. Or she knows her worth and refuses to settle for less than she deserves. Her emotional clarity helps her distinguish between genuine connection and temporary attention. Or she doesn't chase, she chooses. Her energy is no longer scattered in pursuit of validation, but concentrated in self-respect. She knows that love should never cost her peace. Or eventually, she stops looking back altogether. The person who once occupied her thoughts now becomes a distant memory, a lesson she's thankful for. Or she doesn't harbor bitterness or nostalgia, only gratitude for what it taught her about herself. The distance that once hurt now feels like a blessing in disguise. Or she realizes that closure doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from acceptance. In the end, or she emerges as a version of herself that even she didn't know existed, wiser, calmer, and more confident. She moves on not with anger, but with grace. Or she no longer seeks validation from others because she's found it within. Her silence now speaks volumes, not of loss, but of liberation. Or she's free from the weight of waiting, free from the need to be understood. What once broke her has now built her.